Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
How amazing would it be if you could practice because you want to, not because you have to? Learn how to improve your cash flow and increase your passive income now. Go to moneyripples.com or find their podcast, The Chris Miles Money Show, to learn more. All right, TCP listeners, I have an incredible guest today, and that is actually Dr. Tamara. And Dr. Tamara, MacIntyre, excuse me. I'm going to start over. Hold on. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. All right. All right, TCP listeners, I have an incredible guest today, and that is actually Dr. Tamara MacIntyre. How are you doing, Doc?
I'm doing great.
I'm laughing because I totally screwed up your introduction on my first try. It's one of those days where I forget to actually say your last name.
That's all okay, right. But you said my first name correctly, so it's all good. Yeah.
So why don't we do this? Because I know you incredibly well, or at least I'm feeling like I'm starting to get to know you incredibly well. But why don't you share with our listeners a little bit more about like who you are and how you're actually starting to show up as a real leader inside of our profession today as well?
So I was born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and my mom was a nurse and my dad was a social worker. And so health was always like an area of interest growing up. And I didn't really understand the impact that was going to have on me until my best friend was diagnosed with leukemia when I was 16.
Wow.
And like 2 years later, my dad was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. And so I sort of feel like my whole formative years, I was having this really different relationship with health and our responsibility. And I was sitting with medical doctors, and I was very much, my parents were super open with my dad's illness. I was very much part of my friend's experience and journey. And so, yeah, for me personally, my relationship with health and my body, and it's always been an area of interest and a passion for me because of that experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, now where did you go to chiropractic college?
I went to college at Palmer in Davenport.
Okay.
I was there. The president was Virgil Strang at the time.
That would have been great.
Yeah, and he passed away during he taught me Philosophy 101. And so I had him for the full first trimester that I was there. He signed my book, and he passed away really shortly after that. And then as president came Dr. Guy Reithman. So I was at Palmer at like such an amazing time because the doors just opened up. And so everybody that had not been allowed on campus before was welcomed back. And when Guy came, he sort of said, like, this is nobody owns Palmer. This is the fountainhead, and every chiropractor has the right to be here. Mm-hmm. So I went to school when everybody was coming to check out Palmer again. And so, we had Reggie in our car and picked him up from the airport, and we got to know him really well. And I actually used to give tours in BJ's Palmer's home. And so, and at that time, if you paid a premium, you could get a private tour. And so I was the head of the guides. I did all the private tours. I'm like, anybody in our profession that wanted to pay a premium, I was your person that was going to tour to show you BJ's house. So I really feel like I had this incredible chiropractic education at a time where so many were so giving of themselves and their knowledge. I mean, it was just people would come on campus and sit in the student lounge and just hang out. I mean, you didn't have to pay them to be part of their expertise and their wisdom. And I'm very much a byproduct of just an altruistic, high highly passionate, energetic time in chiropractic on that Palmer campus. So
that's
super
so
grateful
cool.
for that.
And so you graduated Palmer, right?
Yep.
So the Fountainhead, so Davenport, and then,
Yes.
so you have a master's degree in neuroscience as well, right? So did you have that before, or did you go back? Did you get that afterwards? Or?
No. So I did my undergraduate degree at the University of New Brunswick, and I did biology and psychology. I was doing language acquisition work, and at the time, my dad was sick. And so I stayed at home, went to university. He passed away after my second year of university. And so I finished my degree, and then I started my master's degree in neuroscience.
Gotcha.
And my dad did addiction research. And so for me, it was like, when I met his neurosurgeon and I was part of his, really part of like the neuro exams. And I remember so clearly sitting with the neurosurgeon when he asked my dad what he wanted when he went in there to do surgery. And my parents were really great that way. So for me, it just felt natural. I just needed to know more about the nervous system. It's just like, it was just so obvious, it's like I'm sitting at my own kitchen table and my dad asks for his carrots instead of his glasses. And I'm sitting in my classroom, no joke, Ed, I'm sitting in my classroom at the exact same time in my undergrad, and I'm learning the difference between Wernicke's and Broca's area. And I knew and understood what was happening based on where his brain tumor was, why he was asking for carrots instead of his glasses. I understood the aphasia. And so for me, I just needed more. And so that's how I ended up doing my master's degree. So I did my master's degree in neuroscience.
Gotcha.
And then I became a chiropractor.
And so so then when you graduated from chiropractic college, then you went to Ottawa?
Yep, exactly.
And that's when you opened up your practice right away?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then how long did you practice in Ottawa?
Just shy of 14 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from what I understand is like you and your wife, like you had a smoking busy practice there. You had a great practice, right?
We did. We had a really great practice. Yeah. We had a really great practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it about that? Like, what was it about coming back to Ontario specifically, or to Canada more specifically, I should say, after you graduated? Why was it Canada and not, because so many Canadians I know stay down in the States?
We had really big plans. And honestly, I would say, I'd be curious to see how Monique could answer this, but when we were making those plans, we just really felt like we were scratch startups. I mean, we were just like, it was so obvious that was the direction for us. And in order to do that financially, we could basically, at the time, walk into a bank, present a business plan, get, the money, have a credit line, and
isn't that crazy?
Started. So for us, it was like at that time, we were going to school when there was 15,000 chiropractic students in North America. And so it was like what they now refer to as the bubble in enrollment. But the opportunity and where the economics were at the time, we literally just walked in with a business plan, got a call less than 24 hours with 100% approval, and that's how we started. And we could not have done that if we had stayed in the States. The extended educational visa would have limited our income, and we looked at what that income was going to be, and we're like, oh yeah, no, we're going to make way more than that. And that was our confidence. It was like, yeah, no, we're ready. We're doing it, and that's what we did. Yeah.
It's so true though. Cause like, I remember when we walked, like same thing, graduated, walked into the bank. I think we went to 2 different banks. We were shopping banks. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
I was so proud, of my Word document business plan.
Totally. I still have it actually as a joke. It's like in a binder, right? Like it's in a binder that I handed a binder. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, that's why I got the loan. No, it was like, actually they were just really like, we were the new doc in town, right? Also startups were a lot. It was just, they were loaning more easily at the time. So.
Our very first patient was the banker that approved.
Perfect.
No joke. Our very first patient was the banker who approved our business loan.
That is a good business proposal then.
Yeah.
Like
we were so ready. We were so ready to educate. Yeah, we were ready. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So one of the things we love as well, like on TCP, is we love words of positivity. We love like affirmations, quotes, personal quotes as well. It's like, do you have any positive words you'd love to drop on doctors today?
I think for me, the one that sort of is surfacing more often than not, it's always been about awareness or integrity. Those two attributes are really key for me. The awareness seems to be probably most poignant right now. And so there's a Thich Nhat Hanh quote that says, awareness is like the sunshine. And I really feel like once you become aware, once you see something that you didn't see before, you can't unsee it. Like it's not possible. And so the opportunity for growth happens when you're willing to suspend, that idea that what you think, that you can believe everything you think, which you totally can't. And that once you become aware and once you can see something with such clarity, you can't unsee it, and there's opportunity in that space. And that's definitely been true for me in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's like when you get unplugged from. You ever watch the Matrix movie, right? Everyone's seen it. It's like you get unplugged from the Matrix. It's like you can't get plugged back in.
No,
like you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like people are more like, especially maybe in our profession, do you think people are more like docs are more aware, like even with the last, the climate of change that we've had in the last 4 months or 4 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I would say when you talk about positivity, I'm actually really excited about the opportunity that's going to present itself. And I actually don't really have many doubts here. I'm going to say people's relationship with their health has fundamentally changed in the last 4 weeks. And not just in a personal, but I think culturally. I mean, I think if you weren't taking care of your physical vessel, if you felt incredibly vulnerable, if you reflected on the way you were eating or not exercising, or, this brought to the forefront, like, what is your relationship with your health? And so I feel like chiropractors are so perfectly positioned to engage in that dialogue because we educate from an empowered place. Medicine doesn't. They empower using fear. And that shuts people down. And so, I think chiropractors are perfectly positioned to be able to continue to have the conversations that we do. But I really feel like, for as much as we say, when are people going to come back or show up in the offices? That's the negative, sort of thing that I hear out there. I actually think that people will come in droves because they will have a new relationship with their body and how it expresses.
It's interesting. I've had at least 2 or 3 people say to me, or if I've read this maybe in a couple, comments and things on social media, is like, how can chiropractors, how can we as, a chiropractic profession do any sort of virtual or, well, not virtual necessarily, but telehealth or telemedicine, or like, I hate that word too. I get to use that word, just that term telemedicine. It's not, it's telehealth. Like, how can we do that? How can we be part of that? But I mean, to me, it was logical. It makes sense. But do you ever hear that, or do you ever have anyone who's posed that to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and so I think about, if I was in practice in the way that I was, with the volume that I was doing what I was doing, I wasn't in an EHR. I had a filing cabinet, like a big filing cabinet of what I called educational handouts, right? Because that's what I put in my ROF, folder.
Yeah.
And so if you think about where we are virtually right now, I would have had an online educational portal. I mean, I would have had some kind of online educational portal, whether it was, if I was a doc who did a lot of exercise recommendations or stretching recommendations, if I was a doc that did a lot of nutritional type work, I have no doubt I would have converted that paper thing to something that people would have been using more, whether it's a membership portal, whether it's, programs that I would run in sequence or something like that. Because the more educated your patient is, the less you are constantly having the same conversation over and over and over again. And so you have such an opportunity with the way technology has changed. I can only imagine that I would be using that technology to continue to teach patients about their body and how to take better care of themselves. And it would just alleviate a lot of that work that's being done one-on-one over a table, in that kind of capacity. And there's no exchange for the one-on-one part. But my goodness, from an energy perspective, we all know, that 20% of our practice that takes 80% of our energy. There's lots of ways that we could divert but provide high content value and offset some of that weight, I think, that a lot of docs feel.
Mm.
Yeah.
So interesting how things change so quickly. Or maybe they don't in some ways, but I mean, I think back to like, I've been doing this podcast for so many years. And when I started out, it was like, this is like nobody, like what's Zoom, what's Skype? What do you mean podcast? What? Like, nobody really connected that way. They didn't know to, fast forward like 2 years, it's still kind of like an iffy thing. And then now we fast forward another 2 years and it's like, this is like the norm.
Totally.
Like how we're communicating and how we're educating, like you say, and having virtual or having content like that we can share, or memberships. It's almost like part of our vernacular. Whereas like back 2 years ago, people didn't even really consider that. So with that while you were saying that, I was thinking, what do you think it's going to look like a year or 2 years from now?
Right. Well, and I think, here, that's also the interesting thing. Like I think about generations of chiropractors and, have they adapted or accommodated, or have they stayed in that same kind of model? And I think that that's also where some of the struggle for some of our new docs and new grads is that they've been educated in a model that's not the way they use information. So, the talking head thing, I was great at taking notes and it completely worked for me, but I didn't have all these other diversions and I didn't have access to quick, retrieval of information. So you've got a whole new group of docs coming into this profession who are not going to easily adopt and acquiesce into that, way chiropractic has been, provided to patients or even, the services that they're asking for. I mean, it's really easy for me. It's like, I spent a lot of time in the last 6 years working with people 25 to 35. I love them. I love them. They're post something on Facebook or send them an email, forget about it. Like maybe they'll see it in a week. Post something on Instagram, they're on it.
Isn't that crazy, eh?
Yeah. So I've also become aware that even with online business, the online business is still catering to a population that's a little older than that catchment of students because they don't use it that way. Now, I can't imagine I'm going to go to TikTok. Like I can just, I'd like that. I'm not so sure.
You're not going to dance?
That's not my thing. But yeah, so I think, you look at technology and what that's going to actually look like. I think it's where they really struggle actually with trying to, like the statistic that they change jobs every 2 years is also a byproduct of the fact that they value experience over finances.
Yes. Yeah. It's so interesting too, because now I just felt like, I'm just like, oh my God, like I have to this podcast needs to start to be on Instagram. That's the reason why no one between 25 and 35 ever get on a call with me.
Well, have you watched Russell Brand is brilliant the way he's doing it. I mean, he's got it down as far as generational set, it's like he launches these little snippets of his podcast, defaults to IGTV. If you want more, you head over to Luminary. It's like he's got all the generations sorted. It's like, I want you for 3 minutes. I want you for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Okay, I'm willing to watch the whole thing because I need the rest of it. Like he's got it down.
Yeah. And again, in probably 12 months, there'll be something new. There'll be something else that we're going to be chasing or trying to learn, which is not a bad thing. Because I do think that we all need to keep evolving.
Yeah, for sure.
So I always talk about I don't want to call it the shit sandwich, but I'm going to call it the shit sandwich. So everyone eventually or everyone in some way, shape or form, whether it's personal, professional, otherwise, in school, has experienced struggle. Yeah. So was there ever a time that you experienced the struggle and what you took from that and what learned from it and how you apply it to your life or business today?
My earliest memory of struggle I just shared with you, my late teenage years, my early 20s were I would still say the toughest years of my life. And I would say as I've gotten older, my reflection and my compassion and my empathy for that young kid, just trying to make her way, not relating to her peers, not actually really, having a good sense of like, I didn't really, like I had to, as an adult, learn what fun is all about. Like, what is play? Because so much of that time in my life was so heart-wrenching and serious and painful, so that's still the time in my life that I look back and I think, oh man, what a rough way to try to make your way into adulthood,
Yeah.
But having said that, the lessons that came from that and my ability to be present in a way for patients in that space, like to meet that vulnerability, like I just realized really quickly, I have a real capacity because I've experienced what I experienced, and it was never like, I went into chiropractic thinking I'm going to take care of healthy people who want to be healthier. Like, I'm not going to take care of the sick people. And, and then I remember my very first time having a patient with ovarian cancer. And I remember really truly learning what ascites was, because I had her turn over on the table and all I heard was this gigantic gush, like a wave.
Wow.
And it was visceral for me. Like, I felt like I heard and I knew where she was at. And I remember just leaving the table, going into my little office and just bawling. Because it was not really what I thought I was signing up for. And so, like then I just ended up with a subsection of my practice that was people that had terminal diagnosis or were in the process of being diagnosed. And because of my earlier struggle, my ability to meet them where they're at, to be able to talk about and talk through some of their fears, to be able to empower them in that space, was all a byproduct of me just trying to make sense of that time in my life. And then all of a sudden I find myself as a professional sharing that incredibly vulnerable space with people in probably some of the most pure, authentic, grounded space that human beings are ever at when they're that, when they're faced with that level of a health issue. And so it's been mixed for me. It's definitely that time in my life and that struggle framed how I chose to meet people in that space of thoughtfulness where, for some reason in our culture, we don't deal with, or we think about health as being that outside in. And so, our bodies and its expression are part of our spiritual journey as well. But, we're so used to like the car's broken and go change something, that whole sort of check engine light. And so for me, it's like, but like your life's journey, if you end up with a physical diagnosis and it's expressing in some way, that's part of your emotional spiritual journey.
Yeah.
You're just experiencing it in a physical way. And so I was able to have that level of conversation with people in that space where I became sort of that person who wasn't involved in their drama, but was able to meet them in that hearted space. And that I really treasured. And that was entirely because of my own struggles. And I wish somebody had been able to meet me there.
Yeah. I think I've said it before, is like when I almost died and I was diagnosed with a chronic, severe illness. I mean, it made me a better doctor. Like it made me a better I will also a better chiropractor. Do you think that in general though, I mean, as docs or as chiropractors, I should say, we have a better bedside manner than say medics or?
Yeah. I mean, when I taught case history, we used to talk about that. I mean, when you look at the actual statistics, it's 18 seconds before a patient is interrupted by a medical doctor. And so, in teaching case history and even just the time that we spend in those first couple of visits and the rapport that we establish, you create a space of openness and exchange that doesn't exist in their conventional doctoring experience. And so I think we as chiropractors, I mean, how many of us have heard, nobody's listened. Nobody's asked me that question before. You know, I've never had such a thorough exam, you know, and we get those kind of questions because we are really focused on the person and looking at the whole. I mean, everything is about the whole. They're not parts, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That I would totally, and every one of those statements you just gave, I would get that all the time.
All the time.
Like, I've never had that type of,
Yeah.
No one's ever asked me that.
Yeah.
Like, really?
It was probably one of the stunning things, like when I was finishing up in practice, and I remember somebody saying to me, I want to stay connected with you because I've always had a sense that you actually really understand health. Like, you really get health.
You get it.
You get it, you know? And I think that we as chiropractors do at that level. I think that you can't work with people, even if you don't think of yourself as doing any energetic work, there is an energetic exchange that happens with the adjustment. It doesn't matter what technique, you are touching somebody and there is an exchange that is happening outside of physical force and just, you know, dissipation of force. There's an energetic exchange, and we as chiropractors can't ignore that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love to hear about something positive, something that's really cool projects that, you know, people that we're chatting with are working on. Now, I know part of the Prana Foundation is part of what you're working with, but what else, like, I mean, would you love to share with our listeners today?
So some of my, you know, sort of my initiatives within the foundation and some of the things that I'm working on, I have a clinical mentorship group, which is really, has been really enriching. And so oftentimes new grads and docs find, you know, are looking for that kind of clinical support and being able to ask questions. And so I do a small group clinical mentorship. We're just getting ready to help some of those students and new docs that have been kind of the gap between, you know, what they thought was going to be their plan and not having a plan has now gotten even bigger. So we've just created an opportunity for them to actually catch them and give them a little bit of a support net. And, you know, quite honestly, I am trying to decide clinically what I would like to do. You know, I found myself really, since I left practice, there's always the people, you know, individuals reaching out and looking for consultation. And so, you know, I think during my time at the university, there was always a faculty, a parent, a student. I always had those kind of consults where people were looking for directions. I think it's hard for us as chiropractors to find congruent access to healthcare. It's sort of like you think you have to pick and choose. It's like I either, you know, stay on this side of the line or I go into medicine, but like what's in between, you know? And so, yeah, so that's where like my functional medicine and my doctor of natural medicine, you know, bridges that gap. Like who I am as a chiropractor philosophically is the way I work with people's bodies, period. You know? So I'm trying to figure out a way to do that and make that, that aspect of me, because, you know, ultimately it's my life, is how can I make that accessible in a meaningful way? And so I'm working on that. So you'll have to stay tuned and see what comes up.
Yeah, well, I'm going to drop the link inside of the show notes for our podcast today, because I actually have your link tree, I guess is what we call it. And, you know, literally there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 different links that people can, you know, docs who are listening can come and check out the clinical mentorship. There's a brochure here, the Prana Foundation, even join the Facebook community, which I would strongly encourage. There's some incredible information in there that you and Dr. Monique Andrews are dropping. And it looks like you still have a retreat coming up. You
know what, we're holding out. I mean, you know, who knows what the world is going to look like. In reality, you know, we're really looking at confirming dates like end of the year, beginning of January, I think, probably realistically. We do have a couple people that are still holding out for June. So, you know, we're going to have to make a decision pretty soon. But yeah, it's still there.
We'll see.
People can inquire and express the interest, but we'll adapt.
So everyone, you can actually head over to the chiropracticphilanthropist.com. So the chiropracticphilanthropist.com. Actually, we're by this time, hopefully, by the time this airs, we'll have our brand new website created.
Oh, perfect.
So yeah, so we're going to have a webpage dedicated to our discussion, also with Dr. Tamara MacIntyre, and we'll have all the links and resources that she's providing today and her link tree, so you can check that out and actually connect with her. Now, let's head into the TCB time machine. Are you ready for this?
Okay,
This is called
I'm
Back
ready.
to the Future.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so we're going to actually we're going to put you into the TCB time machine. We send you back to a younger version of yourself. Now, this is right after you graduated chiropractic college, and you have all the life experience that you have today, all the clinical experience, everything. Okay. What would you say to that younger self?
First thing I would say would be to have more fun. I'm a super intense person. And I would say to that younger self that that the universe has you. Like, everything is going to be okay. And while I work pretty hard, I work pretty intensely, but it's as important to have fun along the way and not take things so seriously. I would say that would be the first thing. Yeah.
I think I needed to hear that today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I remember I remember asking my therapist. I said one time, this was a number of years ago, and I said, "So, what do adults do for fun? Give me some examples of play or fun, And it was really just part of my own exploration. Like, I knew what I loved to do, but I just had not, at that point in my life, I just had not created enough opportunities, nor did I recognize that, whether it's playing with clay or being on my bike or going for a run, like, that's as important as any professional work endeavor that I am doing. It's like, I have to build that in at a level that fills me up as much as my professional life. And I didn't, that was a learned lesson out of, really just spinning out and realizing that then where was me? I knew exactly who I was as a chiropractor. I knew exactly what the business looked like. It was thriving. And I was like, and where's the rest of me?
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, even when I was in practice, it was stressful.
Totally.
Well, I should say it could be stressful, but it was also fun.
Yeah.
It's a healthy mix of both. But then, and I imagine with docs who are like today in this, I'm assuming we're still in this kind of lockdown climate, is that, that stress level has been kind of amplified. So one thing that we all should be doing, and I agree, is like just finding a little bit more joy in life.
Totally. Yeah. And I don't mean to say I didn't have fun in practice. I did, but there's that can't be, some of your like the most significant fun you're having is you as the professional in that role.
No, I hear you.
So much more than that. And I think I just didn't realize all of those other aspects of myself that at that time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bought a mountain bike.
Yeah.
Okay. July last year.
Yes.
It's still at the store waiting for me to go pick. It's a great bike, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the perfect example of, I need to have more joy, more fun, and just allow myself to do that too. And because I love doing what I do and I love this, but there has to be that other part of life too. Right?
And because I'm an introvert, I really like my alone time. And my connection with my physical vessel, and I need to feel its power through exercise, because I then feel powerful. But there isn't any exchange. Like, you can have fun at work and you can be amazing at what you're doing, which you are, by the way. But that's not all of it. Like, that's not, that's not all of who you are. And I think it's just that balance you can't ever give up. If you lose who you are personally in all of that aspect that you are not expressing in your work life, then it catches up to you.
Yeah. And again, incredibly poignant kind of conversation, considering what we're going through right now. And if someone's listening to this and it's like a year from now, I don't know, maybe we're still in that situation. Who knows? But I think it's a timeless conversation of like just having more joy. I don't think there's anyone who ever was in their deathbed saying, "Hey man, I wish I had worked harder."
Yeah, I pulled a card the other day. I don't know if you can see this, but this is the card that I pulled the other day.
Oh, I saw that. I think I saw that on social. Yeah. Joy is power.
Yeah. And it's the reason we're having this conversation is that reminder. And I think, for those people that 100% of their energy and their joy was derived in their practice, I would imagine that this moment in time is incredibly painful to try to figure out what to do with time, it's a force, everyone's being forced to reconsider and how they're operating in their life. I think I've said this a few times and even on lives, but so what I'd love to do is actually we'll jump into the resource. So basically this could be something you're reading, listening to, watching, could be someone you're following or like someone that you say like, go follow this person like Tony Robbins or something like that. I don't know. What is a resource where a doc who just is thirsty for some knowledge right now, where should they go? What should they learn? So I'm really enjoying Russell Brand right now. The content that he's putting out there is at a level that, acknowledges the heaviness of where we're at, but also just some really lovely headed and feeling information associated with other ways you can look at this. And the people he's interviewing are talking about how this is going to impact our relationship with food. Other people are talking about the relationship with nature, what's happening if you are or have levels of addiction. So I'm really enjoying him right now.
Yeah.
I went back and reread Donnie Epstein's 12 Stages of Healing.
Get out.
I did. And I'll tell you, I really enjoyed the reflection. So I just went back. It's like 25 years old now. I remember reading it for the first time and thinking, oh my God, and I was a student of Sue Brown's and I went back and read that again and I thought, oh wow, like actually I want to actually have that conversation with more students and more new docs about that not everybody arrives ready for the type of healing that you are it's like, this is what I do. And this is, everybody's going to buy into this. And so I just read that over again.
Wow.
Yeah.
We used to give that book when people would graduate from their first year of care.
Oh yeah.
Give that as a gift.
Yeah. 25 years ago, lots of us did. And Donnie's still doing, he's still doing actually a lot of lives right now. And, what I relate to the most in network is the foundational philosophical, energetic basis of who we are as beings. That's not the way I practice, but there's something about the way that he communicates with our existence in the world as energetic beings I've always related to. And so I'm listening to him a little bit more again, which is a nice place to be. And not spending tons of other time entertaining a lot of the other heaviness that's going on. I did a podcast with She Slays, Lauren Brunswick, and I'm enjoying her frank honesty associated with where chiropractors are at right now, how they're feeling. And she's just really, really honest about putting content out there. And I appreciate authentic expression. So those are the people I would say right now.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And that was unexpected too, that bringing that Donnie Epstein book into the conversation. Wow. That's a throwback. Definitely docs should go and check that out. For sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because it's also one of those, like, what it brought to me, because I'm talking to students all the time is, can I, how am I going to educate tonally? And I just had an email today that said, I'm going into a tonal office, but they're educating biomechanically and I'm needing to understand what that looks like. And I forgot that there's that whole section of my education that was about bringing that back. And that not everybody, when we talk about healing, that healing is a responsibility, and it's our human responsibility, and nobody else is responsible for our healing, but where and what, where you are and what you're looking for deeply impacts where a chiropractor can meet you. Yeah. So
good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, you can actually head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. Again, we're going to have a webpage dedicated to our discussion today and all the links and resources as well. I want to thank you so much for being on the TCB podcast today. This has been a great conversation and tons of value. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Chiropractic Philanthropist.